Welcome to another edition of Inspired Stories, where leaders share their experiences so we can learn from their successes, how they've overcome adversity, and explore current challenges they're facing.
Welcome to another edition of Inspired Stories podcast, where leaders share their experiences so we can learn from their successes, how they've overcome adversity, and explore current challenges they're facing. My name is Anthony Codispoti, and today's guest is Matthew Stafford, CEO of Build, Grow, Scale, an organization that has helped thousands of clients optimize their e-commerce presence. They do this through hands-on training and offer a done-for-you service where they've helped numerous companies scale past 8 figures. Before COVID, they hosted the largest yearly e-commerce focused event in North America. Through his own personal challenges, Matthew has come to understand the importance of a healthy mindset and puts a big emphasis on helping others to achieve their goals. Before we get into the good stuff, today's episode is brought to you by my company, Addback's Benefit Agency, where we offer very specific and unique employee benefits that are both great for your team and fiscally optimized for your bottom line. One recent client was able to save over $900 per employee per year by implementing one of our proprietary programs. Another client is going to save over $1,200 per employee per year by implementing a different program, a patented construct that we offer. Results vary for each company, and some organizations may not be eligible. To find out if your company qualifies, contact us today at addbackbenefitsagency.com. Now, back to our guest today, the CEO of Build, Grow, Scale. Matthew, I appreciate you making the time to share your story today.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
So, Matthew, before we talk about Build, Grow, Scale, or BGS as those in the know call it, I'd like to talk a little bit about kind of how you got started on the whole e-commerce train. What did that track look like?
Yeah, so it was actually very unintentional to start with. So I owned a commercial concrete business. I ran that approximately 23 years, 24 years, and about 5 years before I ended running that, I went to a Tony Robbins event, and it was my first one. And he was selling a program called Money Masters, and it was a DVD series, so it kind of dates me a little bit. And the very first one, it was a monthly. You're gonna get a new lesson every month, and the very first one I got was Frank Kern talking about selling an ebook on how to train your parrot to speak, and how he had sold thousands and thousands of copies and made, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I just, um, it literally just like shocked me. I used my computer every single day for blueprints and emails and FTP files, sharing stuff, but had never once even thought about making money online, or at least not that I can remember. And I was like, wow, that's pretty fascinating. And from that point forward, I thought, I'm going to figure out how to make money online, because I was with the commercial concrete business. We were on the road about 200 days a year. So we were traveling all over the country. We were doing Menards, Walmarts, Home Depots, Lowe's, the big box stores, and like distribution centers, stuff like that. We were pouring the flat work. And so there was just so many variables. We had to have millions of dollars worth of equipment, 30, 40 employees. And then if we traveled to a job and it rained for 4 or 5 days in a row, that didn't matter. Like, we just had to eat it, and that was part of it. And so come around 2008, 2009, and I had already been kind of going through that process of learning how to generate money online. We did a Walmart for a general contractor who we'd probably done $4 or $5 million worth of work for. And they had made some poor decisions when the housing market crashed, and they decided they weren't going to be able to pay the contractors for the Walmart. And so our particular contract's around 360 grand for the work we did there. And we didn't get paid for it. And we had a subcontractor for another couple $100,000, which is a curbing contractor. So we were on the hook for over $500,000. We leaned the Walmart, and us, that being the first time we ever did any of that stuff, Walmart just bought a bond and like basically skipped our lien, was still able to open the store, do all their things, and we never got paid. Fought it for several years, just ended up being, a moneyless pit. And that just fueled my desire to figure out the online stuff even more, because the risk versus reward in that business had flip-flopped, and it was no longer worth the reward for the amount of risk that we held. So that was really how I got into it, and my main driver behind figuring it out and doing it as quickly as possible.
So Tony Robbins' event exposed you to Frank Kern, sort of a legendary marketer in the space. And then
Yeah.
from there, like, did you just continue to follow Frank in terms of how to like learn and get a foundation and what to do? Or were there other
Yes, I definitely
sources of?
followed him, and I don't remember the order, but then in that 12 series was Jeff Walker, um, Brendan Bouchard, Russell Brunson, um,
A lot of big
John
names in the
Reese.
e-com space.
Yeah, all the OGs of the, getting started doing that and showing people how to make money online. So there was just a lot of different examples. Um, and the way my brain works is, taking as much data as possible and then try to optimize it. And so I do feel very fortunate that, for the 10 years that I've been online, that I've actually, probably, well, now 13 years, time flies, that I've been able to do fairly well at it, and I actually really enjoy it. So, but yeah, that's how it started.
So let's talk before Bill Grow Scale still. Talk to us about some of those successes that you found in the e-com space early
Y-
on.
Yeah, so the very first, well, I did like some SEO, and back then it was pretty easy to rank like local businesses. And so I had two brick and mortar stores. So I did it for my own brick and mortar stores, and we were able to really grow those um, more than 100% year over year for the first few years, which was pretty incredible. And it kind of gave me that whole feeling of like, man, I can't mess up. But then when that contractor did that to us, I was like, oh yeah, there's things that can happen that you don't plan for. And so for me, um, that was my first experience of actually making money from doing something online. And during that period, a platform came out called Teespring, which is where you could essentially put designs on t-shirts and then market them with Facebook ads. And again, for some reason, how my brain works, I had I'd studied how to figure out how to, like, back then you could use the user ID in Facebook and target people with certain name. And so
So you'd be able to serve up an ad to me that had Anthony in the ad, which
yeah,
really going to draw my attention in.
yeah, yeah. And so when I figured that out, and Facebook would serve it to you, they would say, oh, like, okay, the number of Anthony's in the United States is 65,000. I'm like, okay, cool. So I came up with a shirt called Schmidt Happens, and targeted everybody with the last name Schmidt. And within 24 hours, that shirt had made me, I want to say, close to $15,000. And I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, profit 15,000, not sales 15,000. And I was like, I think I'm onto something here. And so then I started coming up with as many different names as I could think of, launching a bunch, and um, made it at the time what I thought was a ridiculously large amount of money for how easy it was. And what I realized is those campaigns would run out after a week or two. And I just felt like, man, it feels like there has to be a lot more than that many people um, with that name in the country. And somehow they just don't have it. And so one night I literally opened up a Excel sheet and put every single state on it. And then what I did was I ask Facebook for everybody with that name in that state, and then the next state, and the next state. And after about 7 or 8 states, I realized the number was already as big as they had given me when I asked for the entire United States. And so it exponentially grew my market, and I relaunched a bunch of them, and literally 3 or 4x what I had made the original time, because now all of a sudden a lot more people were seeing it.
So
Um,
for some reason, Facebook was kind of limiting the number of people that they were showing your ad to. You went in and said, "Hey, this doesn't make sense. What happens if I like split the ad groups out into individual
States.
states?"
Yeah.
And for whatever
And
reason, however the Facebook algorithm worked, it opened you up to a much bigger audience.
yeah, literally like gigantically. And it worked just as good. Those people had just never seen the ad and didn't have the opportunity to buy. So um, I was in a couple of Facebook groups at the time around that stuff, and I just shared it with everybody. I've always been really good at just sharing what I'm doing. I don't care. Like I have no scarcity mindset. And everybody else started doing it. And it literally got to the point that Facebook turned that ability off to where we couldn't target people because so many people were getting targeted that they were afraid of Facebook. Like, oh, they have way too much information on us. They didn't really understand it back then. And so then we just, switched over to like hot market. Like people would make phrases with celebrities or whatever. We come up with, fun sayings and put them on shirts and then market it. And that's what I did. Uh, I think within the first 20, well, probably closer to 3 years, we had done about $15 million in sales and t-shirts. And
And
so
this
it
is
was,
kind of a nice business model from what I understand, because you don't own the equipment, you don't own the t-shirts, you didn't have to outlay all that capital to
nope.
sort of create the
Didn't have to
foundation
have
for this
inventory,
business.
anything. We would literally run a campaign, and we could set the time frame. And we played with that to figure out like what was the best time frame, because people don't want to buy it and wait for 2 weeks before the campaign ends. So that would hurt sales. So we had to figure out like, when we could, how long we could get away with that they would still wait, and then how long before we could relaunch it again, and people that wanted it the first time that didn't buy it would get it again. And I that's the way that my mind worked. I was figuring out how to optimize all of that stuff early on and figure out how to maximize that rather than just trying to come up with brand new ideas every single day. And by doing that, for sure, I feel like it helped me a lot to have the success that we did.
So what you've just described is known as the print on demand space, or POD.
Yeah.
Are you still in that space? Did this eventually kind of taper off or dry up? What was sort of the trajectory of that?
I would say I'm still in that space from the standpoint of I help several companies that are in the print on demand. Um, I'm closely connected to it because we ended up starting a software company and having our own platform that then we sold. And so, yeah, the print on demand happens every single day I mean, probably hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars per year. So yeah, it is. And I help those people, but now they do it off on a Shopify site and kind of own a brand that their particular t-shirts are centered around.
And so prior, the transaction was taking place somehow on Facebook itself, and now
Nope,
you're
it was taking place on that platform, and then they would pay you out when the campaign ended.
and this is a platform that you helped to develop, is that what you said?
Well, Teespring was the first one, and then we developed one called Canvas. And I went around the country and I was the first one to get licensed print on demand for the SEC schools. So we had Florida, Alabama, Georgia, uh, a bunch of like all the big ones. The only one that we did not get was the University of Michigan, which really bummed me out because that's where I was born, in Ann Arbor, and I got all the ones but the one that I really wanted the most. And so yeah, we got to print licensed merchandise with print on demand design. So we'd submit the designs, get them approved, and then we were the only ones that could run those. And so once we did that, we ended up selling that platform to someone else.
Excellent. So a guy who was in the commercial concrete space, somehow trips and finds himself in the e-com space. And
Yeah.
then now he's out building a platform and getting licenses from all the major colleges and universities,
Yeah.
and turns around and then sells this platform.
Yeah. And then from there, I jumped into my very first Shopify site, which was a kitchen brand.
What was the name of that brand?
Kitchen Bright.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not something that you're still involved with today?
No, we sold it.
Okay.
Yeah, we sold
And
it.
so you had some e-com successes along the way. We touched on a handful of them. What were some roadblocks, some stumbles that you had along the way?
Hmm.
Or was it just all rainbows and sunshine up to this point?
No, it definitely wasn't. I think in all reality, the stumbles were probably my own personal ones. Um,
Mhm.
Looking back, it could have been wildly more successful, or I could have done better things with the money that we made. Um, but I can't go back and change that now. What I can do is learn from the lessons. And I will say, again, part of my discovery into a lot of the reason why entrepreneurs do certain things, it doesn't make logical sense. It has to do with our subconscious making a lot of decisions for us uh, every single day that we're just literally, it's on autopilot. We're not aware of it. So, yeah, I would say that what would have been better early on is to get a mentor that understood how to handle that type of success and how to plan for uh, eventual issues. And then the second thing that I would do is um, yeah, learn how to take emotion out of the decision making process when it comes to business things. Because a lot of times that emotion obviously fuels feelings which create our actions. And so if you're emotional about something, it means that you're not being objective about it. And so typically your decision making a lot of times will be reactionary rather than mm, instead of a decision that you make, with all the facts.
Can you think of a specific example that you went through where you had kind of this emotional reactionary response?
Yeah, I was part of I had a business partner and he wanted to invest money in something that a friend of his was doing. And so I did without any due diligence, just literally taking his advice. And yeah, I lost a lot of money, probably more than I care to admit. But it was because I got emotionally caught up in what the potential upside could be instead of looking at all the factors that actually go into those type of decisions.
And having gone through something like that, if you were to come across a similar situation now, how do you think you would treat it differently?
I'm pretty good about like realizing now that like the questions that I ask help me focus on the right things. And so I would say I have a list of questions that I would ask myself about that, and then questions that I would also ask of the other person. Um, and I also have a network of people that I could reach out to now that I've built really strong relationships with that would help me make a better decision.
Right.
Yeah.
So, how did you get from running your own e-commerce endeavors to now training thousands of people to do it, and for some clients, taking it over for them and doing it for them for their operations?
Yeah, it actually happened organically to start with. So I started the Shopify site with a kitchen store. It did really well. to take off. It took off really well in the beginning. I was really good at Facebook ads from running all the ads for the t-shirts. And I thought that meant that I could do anything on the store I wanted to, and it would just get bigger and bigger and better. And what I realized was we went from making hundreds and hundreds of sales per day to actually losing money or breaking even and only being profitable some days. And I didn't really understand why. Um, we were kind of always blaming Facebook and saying, "Oh, it's the ad platform. It must be an algorithm change or whatever." But I had invested. I saw a guy, and he's still around. He's a really nice guy, Demetrius Skadatis. He's from Greece. He was selling, hey, learn how to use Google Analytics to look at your data, and I'll give you like a call a week for 6 weeks for $1,000. And so I invested in that. And after the first week, I was like, oh my God, like there's so much data in here that I had no clue that if I figure out how to do that, I'll be able to make more sales and figure this out. I really didn't understand the magnitude of that at the time. But by the end of the 6 weeks, I certainly did. And I've had, Demetrius is a super nice guy, good friend. I've talked to him a ton of times since then. He's like, yeah, nobody else latched onto Google Analytics like you did, and you've taken it 10 times farther. All of our decisions are data driven. If what I've learned is like this is all we do every single day now, and we still make lots of mistakes. And so for us to make assumptions and not use the data to continue to optimize would go back to one of those subconscious beliefs that like, oh, I know better. Oh, I know I don't need to do that. And I just don't do that anymore because I realize every single time I do, it costs me money or it costs my clients money. So in that process of figuring out the data and optimizing the store, we were able to take it back to hundreds and actually even scale it way past that, where it was in the beginning. And so I reached out to a couple of my friends from the t-shirt world who had started Shopify sites and said, hey, I think, I want to make sure I didn't just get struck by lightning and it was successful once. I think I can help you optimize your store and make a difference. And so there was 2 clients, 3 actually. One was Organifi, which is widely known, and Drew's testimonial is on the homepage of our Build, Grow, Scale site. In the first, their site had done 2.75 million the year before. And I think I got on around April, but around the beginning of April, the following year. And within 90 days, we had them at a 8.7 million dollar run rate. So it was basically cleaning up the shopper experience and looking at the data and continually tweaking it and making it better and better. And they ended up doing 16 million. So even though after 90 days it was 8.2, they ended up doing 16 million. So they had more than 5x'd their sales on the site. And they didn't even run traffic to that. They were running traffic to funnels. And that was basically where people would go that didn't buy the funnel or would come back to reorder. And by cleaning it up, so that was all found money for them. And they went on to do extremely, extremely well. Super happy for them. And then another one was 2 friends of mine. They were in the print on demand. They were literally coming up with sayings, putting them on shirts and doing that. And they'd done it to a specific audience. They were doing about 400 grand a month. And they thought like they had really lit the world on fire, which in many cases, that's phenomenal. Like I'd love to have that even now, it's a great store. But within 6 months, we had them at 2.7 million a month. And we could have got there a lot quicker. The issue was with print on demand, they literally kept selling more than their supplier could do. And it was causing fulfillment issues. And so once they got that worked out, they scaled it, a lot higher and ended up selling it for, high 8 figures. So super excited for them. Then the third one that I did, same thing. They were only doing about 10 grand a month, but it was more of a friend of mine. And I just said, hey, like I'll help you. And then if it gets bigger, then we'll figure something out. And so we did that. So literally I was 3 for 3 plus my own. I'm like, this works. And at the time, um, I was in a mastermind with Tanner Larson, and he basically started teaching his group what I was doing. And then he asked me, he said, hey, we should really just do this together. And everybody else is teaching Facebook ads. What you're doing matters to everybody. And it means, it makes Facebook ads work better. And so that
And so
was
what
really
was the difference between what everybody else was doing and what you were now doing? You had talked to Dimitri, he'd sort of shown you how to look at the data inside Google Analytics. What were you seeing back there that then you were able to apply for people that other people weren't doing?
um Man, well, now it's been so long. I'm trying to think what it really was. Back then, it was very simple things that moved the needle because e-commerce was so new that it didn't take the same amount of level now that it does. But like it's really funny. I see themes now being built, and they have now for the last 4 or 5 years with our ideas built right in them. So we know that like um, our influence on the market has been really good, and it's positive. So essentially, back in the day, uh, uh, the themes were built by developers. They're just like an online store catalog. Well, it didn't make it easy to find stuff. It wasn't clear. Uh, People were asking for commitments, way too early. All the different things that like through years of going through that data and figuring stuff out, um, we just keep refining the process, and we're still doing it and still, you know, um, making changes and scaling businesses that have hit like a plateau and can't move past it.
So I've kind of sensed a bit of a common thread here. Matt you're sort of naturally wired to be both curious and introspective. You want to dig in, you want to learn, you want to understand how things work. And at the same time, you're kind of humble enough to say, oh, hey, here's somebody who's really figured something out. Let me learn from them and then take it and sort of take it to another level by just applying your own curiosity. Are there people that even today that you sort of count as those types of teachers or mentors that help you to continue to grow?
Yeah, for sure. And the funny thing is, they're not in the ecom space, but the truth of the matter is, we're all human, and so understanding the human psychology has a lot more to do with helping the website convert better than the color of a button and different things like that. And so, yeah, I do, and I would say that part of the reason why the things that we come up with are different is because we're not following everybody else in the ecom space and just trying to uh, make it a little bit better. I'm literally trying to find things from other industries or other places that have worked really well and figure out how to adapt them into e-commerce in order for it to be what I call a behavior change. And those are where the big wins come. It's no longer in just making the person feel comfortable because um, that's part of it for sure, but that's not enough. And so for us, we're looking for ways to make that customer journey so smooth that like when they're done buying, they're like, oh, I'm glad I did that. Like that just felt good instead of it was hard to do or it was choppy or whatever. And so giving them that experience, we know that we have it really well when our repeat customer rate goes up or our average order value increases or our, value per visitor goes up. So we look at a lot of different metrics than conversion rate, just because conversion rate's good, but I can raise your conversion rate by putting your products on sale. But that's not really the end result of what you're looking for as a business owner. What you're looking for is happy customers that come back again and again and tell other people.
I love, this is something I enjoy doing myself, drawing inspiration from one industry and figuring out how can I apply this over here where nobody has thought to do that before. Without giving away any secret sauce, can you think of a specific example of where you've done that in the past?
Yeah, and in all reality, it's pretty much what set us apart early on was I took from those OGs like who didn't ever run an e-commerce store, um, but they had funnels that were wildly successful. And so I looked through the different stages of the funnel and started building out a map of the e-commerce store like that. So, your homepage is basically top of funnel. And back in the day, you'd see like add to cart or buy now or all these different things. Um, and I just went from the concept of they don't have enough information to buy yet. I just want them to like me and get to the next step. Well, then the next step would be the category page, so that they could narrow their focus and find what they were looking for. Then the product page was used for giving them the information they need to make a decision. So understanding, um, and another one of the ones from the Money Masters at Dean Jackson. And he said, you need to enter the conversation that they're having in their head at the right time or whatever stage of this process they're in. And so I looked at each one of those pages, like what would they be thinking right now? Or what are they thinking of buying right now? Or are they in browsing, et cetera? And so that's really what we did early on in order to be able to take a store and make it convert really well, um, enough to run cold traffic to it and make it profitable.
So, for the uninitiated, sort of the traditional way of doing things is you'd run maybe a Facebook ad, and when you say a funnel, it's basically like a very simplified web page or website that
Or a
doesn't
series of pages, 4 or 5 pages that you just go
kind
step
of
by
you
step
take
through.
them through the
Yeah,
steps of, okay, here's the bit that they need to know now. But there isn't like a lot of distractions like the About Us page or this kind, it's
right.
like there is a very targeted funnel that you want to send them through to get them to the purchase process. And what you guys did is you said, well, that seems to work really well. What if we set up the whole website to sort of function like that?
Yeah.
So we get them here. We know that this is the starting point, and we take them here next and here, and you sort of take them on this journey to hopefully at the end buy from you.
Yeah, 100%. So
Okay.
it's exactly what we did. We still do it today and are constantly, e-commerce is growing, maturing. It's always changing. So people feel like, oh, well, I optimized my store. Yeah, well, 6 months later, there's things happen in the code and people become more familiar with things. And so there's always more work to do.
And so tell me about Build, Grow, Scale BGS today. There's still training going on. You're still helping lots of clients. Paint a
Yep.
picture for me.
Yeah, so we have, again, like you said in the introduction, we have a done for you. So we help companies. Typically, they're doing about 250,000 a month or more before it makes sense to hire us with that service, because we put about 5 people on that each store. There's what's called we call it a RO, which is a revenue optimizer. He's kind of in charge of the data and the communication. Then they have 2 developers, a front end and a back end. They have a bug checker and a Google Analytics person. So that's the team that is constantly going through the data and doing the updates and running the tests and figuring out how to move the store forward and grow it and scale it. And then for the people that aren't at that level, we have a membership that's called the Ecom Insiders that you can join. And inside of there, we teach people what we're doing and, live. So it's basically what we're doing on our partner stores without giving their information away, but the concepts and ideas of what we're testing, what's winning, things that we've done that didn't work, so that you don't have to try them and waste your time. And because we have so much data, it gives us the ability to, you know, give them a much, much better chance of succeeding. So if you look at the success rate in e-commerce, I think about 3,000 new stores are opened every single day in Shopify.
Mm.
And of that, they say like 1 in 140,000 will ever make a sale. Um, yeah.
Oh,
And so the success rate is very, very low, like very low. Even though lots of people have done well at it, the number of people that have tried and not is extremely low. In our membership, we've had about 1,000 members over the little over 1,000 members now over the period of the higher level membership, and from there we've had over 200 stores hit the $1 million mark. And so just out of that 1,000, if you figure that's a 20% success rate to the point of hitting $1 million, um, it's already hundreds and hundreds of times better than the average person. And we have lots of people that make 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand, a month, don't hit the $1 million mark. But for them, that's successful. And I would agree that that's successful. Everybody gets to determine their own. And so, yeah, I know what we do works, and it works really, really well, or we wouldn't have the success rate that we have.
well, what I love about the approach that you're describing is you're working with these larger clients. You're getting real world data from
Yeah.
the different tests that you're running. So this isn't like theoretical. This isn't like you have a theory, you have a hypothesis, you're testing them out on these sites.
Yep.
And then you're coming back and you're saying, okay, here's what's working. Here's
Yeah.
what's working today. And then you can take and share that information with the members, the training members that you have.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they can implement it and grow up, and then they become our clients too. And that's happened, off and on for the last 8 years.
That's great.
Yeah.
Where do you see BGS going from here?
I don't think e-commerce is going anywhere. So I definitely went through kind of a real, like you said, introspective period for the last 2 years, determining really what I wanted to do going forward, and I wanted to build something that I would truly enjoy and love. And so yeah, we've put a lot of revamping into what we do, and a lot of care into figuring out how to make sure that like what we deliver is something that I'll be happy to deliver for the next 5 years. And so yeah, I'm actually really excited to grow that membership again, and add new members in there and teach people, how to basically, when you think about it, I don't really look at it as, oh, I'm just teaching someone how to have a successful e-commerce store, because so many of those people have become friends of mine, and I've seen their life radically change. They've left their corporate job and make 5 times more, or they left their corporate job and now have a good relationship with their wife or their kids, or like the people that send me messages and thank me and tell me their stories. For me, that like really does give me the energy to keep pushing, to figure out more stuff. And so, yeah, that's really super fulfilling. And that's why I'm excited to do it moving forward.
So if somebody's interested either in being a client in the Done For You service, or if they're interested in learning more about the membership program, they would go to buildgrowscale.com
Yep.
for both of those, either one of those.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
They can look in the menu, and they can even just submit a form, and we'll get a hold of them, talk to them, find out what their individual needs are. Yep.
So we've used the word introspective to describe you here a couple of times. I get the sense in hearing some of the past stories that you're sort of driven by your heart and a genuine desire to help people. I mean, the first handful of clients that you had were just friends that you said, "Hey, this is
Yeah.
working for me," and you helped them make a whole lot of money. Are there other ways in your life that you're sort of presenting this sort of giving, caring, compassionate side of Matthew outside of kind of the e-commerce, like hands-on nuts and bolts way?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think that's a loaded question. You and I have had conversations around that. Yeah, I think part of the reason why I am so happy and so fulfilled and want to do this again is because of my own journey. I think originally when I did it, um, I just wanted to make money. I wanted to make more money because I thought that would make me feel better. And the truth of the matter was, what I realized on this journey and during the last couple years is that I was always looking for something outside of me to make me happy or not feel broken. And when I realized that I could actually go inward and find the piece that I was looking for, that the business part became a lot easier and a lot more meaningful. And so, yeah, 100%. Once I figured, or once I recognized that that was possible, I dove into that just like I dove into e-commerce 8, 9 years ago with the same passion. And what I've discovered over the last 2 years, I've been sharing that with other people, and they're getting the same results that I have. And so I just kind of realized like that really is my journey, is to figure stuff out and then figure out a way to articulate it in a way that people can actually use it and make the transformation that they're looking for. And I definitely don't presume to know what success is for everyone else. But for me, doing that for other people, to me feels very successful, and I really enjoy it.
Any particular mentors in that space that you want to call out? People have been particularly helpful for you in your journey, or maybe they weren't even individuals. Maybe they were books or podcasts that kind
Yeah,
of
for
helped to steer
sure.
you.
A book called Letting Go was really, really good. Another one was called by Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul, and then he has another one called The Surrender Experiment. Those two were really, really good. And then probably the one, and I think all of them were instrumental at a certain point, and I would probably get a lot more from them going back through them from where I am now. But I read one called Dark Side of the Light Chasers by, I think, Debbie Ford. And essentially, the premise behind it was, and I had experienced it, like I always thought if I was nicer, then the bad stuff would go away. And what I realized was I was shaming those parts of myself. And in that process of doing that, um, I was suppressing instead of feeling the feelings that I needed to feel. I was trying to avoid them. And so the moment that you learn how to love every part of yourself, then it gives you the freedom to feel the feeling and let go of it. And everybody thinks it sounds counterintuitive, like, well, I don't want to love the parts of me that I don't like. Um, and the reason those parts keep showing up is because you don't love them. It doesn't mean that you have to condone them. It just means that you have to realize that that's part of you. And until you acknowledge it, you can't actually let go of the things that keep bringing that back up. And so acknowledging it, feeling it, it actually goes away and doesn't continue to resurface. And so for me, once I realized that, it was all right, how much can I optimize this process? And my brain, that's just the way my brain works. And that's the journey I'm on right now. And I always will be. So
If somebody's listening to your story, Matthew, and they're like, "Wow, that kind of resonates," like I would like to take sort of first steps into that direction. You mentioned a few of the books that were helpful for you along the way, but I don't know if any one of them would be like a particularly good like starting point for somebody who's like, what he's saying sounds interesting. He sounds like he's at a graduate level. I need to start at kindergarten or first grade on this. Where would be a good place for them to start?
I would say the book, The Untethered Soul, is a really good, yeah, it's a really good book. It's basically, yeah, like, so in the end, like we all want the illusion of control, and we don't really control that much. And I think that's why, um, when I looked at it from a much deeper level and started talking about the different things in this realm, I realized that entrepreneurs in general are pretty unique in that way because trauma is like a feeling of, or the definition of it is a feeling of loss of control. And so I thought like, oh, well, how in our business do we ever feel like we're in control? We don't. Okay. So that's why normal people look at us and go, heck no, I would never want to do what you do. I want to just come in, clock in at 5 o'clock, go home and don't think about that stuff until the next day. And they don't. An entrepreneur's brain doesn't function that way. uh, we function inside of that chaos. Like we get it, and we have a coping mechanism to deal with it. And so maybe, like I said early on, maybe it's healthy, maybe it's not. Maybe we're a workaholic, maybe we drink, maybe we do whatever. Um, no judgment. I'm just saying, like, those are the different things that we do as a coping mechanism. And so figuring that out, for me has helped me unlock a lot of things for other entrepreneurs, that they can actually build a much bigger, stronger business faster and enjoy doing it, because it's not this external thing that's making them feel better, but they've already felt good, and now they're able to show that to the world in a way that, they can communicate better, and yeah, the results are just so much better.
I loved some of the early examples that you shared about the success that you were able to get for your e-com clients with Build, Grow, Scale. I think Organifi was one of the brands you mentioned, and how they 5x'd very quickly. Without giving away any personally identifiable information, are there similar kind of anecdotes that you can share about some folks that you've kind of helped here on the personal side of things?
Yeah, for sure. And the hard part for me is, um, I, I don't see myself as the one that caused the change. I see myself as the one that helped them become aware of maybe what their limiting thoughts were, or maybe the unhealthy beliefs. But in the end, like, I'm not the one doing the work for them. They're the ones that have to do the work. And so I don't credit myself with their result. But their results have been really, really, really good. Like for sure, uh repairing, you know, unrepairable, or what was thought of as an unrepairable marriage. Um, I've had two separate, very successful entrepreneurs who, in their brain, had somehow convinced themselves that, uh, their family and other people would be better off without them, who are now thriving, and, and deep, deep personal friends now. Because when you go through stuff like that, together, like the bond that's created is amazing. So yeah, for sure, financial success, but for me, just the understanding that, we get to choose to be happy every day. And a lot of times our brain has convinced us otherwise. And so once we understand how the brain functions, just like how Google Analytics functions, um, we can use the data that we have to change the results, and literally, um, from what from my own example, actually feel whole and in a place where we can help other people.
That's terrific. Matthew, thank you for sharing your truly inspired story with us today. I appreciate everybody learning with us today. That's a wrap on another episode of the Inspired Stories podcast.